There's one more training variable that I want to talk about, and this is something that I see a lot of people overlook or just not think about, which can be quite costly to your training results. This training variable that I'm talking about is the amount of rest that you take between sets. Hypothetically, there are two possible mistakes we can make here: taking too much rest between sets or not taking enough rest. But realistically, what are the implications of too much or too little rest? And does the rest required vary depending on the different training outcomes that you want to achieve? Let's talk about that now and compare scientific evidence to coaching experience and common thought to see what answer we can come up with. Let's first take a look at what might happen if someone doesn't take enough rest between sets. Some people believe that a shorter rest period will enhance hypertrophy because of the link between shorter rest periods and increased metabolic stress, which is one of the driving contributors of hypertrophy. You've probably heard people recommend 1 to 2 minutes rest in a bodybuilding context. More recently though, there's an increasing body of evidence that suggests that 1 minute is not enough. And several studies have compared 1 minute of rest to longer periods of rest like 3 to 5 minutes rest, and reported that better hypertrophy occurs when the lifters are given the longer rest periods. The researchers think that this is probably the case because the longer rest allows the lifter to recover more between sets, which means that they can perform more sets and reps, so more total volume, but also that the reps that they're able to perform are more likely to be stimulating reps if the lifter is fully recovered coming into that set. Remember in level 1 how we spoke about the fact that stimulation of high threshold motor units is required for hypertrophy? Well, our muscles accumulate central fatigue during our workouts and after each set, and this central fatigue limits the amount of high threshold motor units we can recruit. So this theory says that if we give ourselves a bit more time to rest, it will offer a better chance to recover from this central fatigue, and as a result, we'll be able to perform more stimulating reps in the following sets, which will result in a greater amount of muscle hypertrophy. If this theory is correct, then it would certainly support the idea of taking longer rest periods for maximal strength training as well, since our ability to lift a heavy weight is largely dependent on our ability to recruit enough high threshold motor units. In reality, and in my experience, strength athletes don't really need to be told that there's a study to support them taking longer rests. These athletes know that inadequate rest between sets means they just can't perform as well in that session. So experience and research tells us that taking very short rest periods is not ideal for hypertrophy or strength performance gains. Now, let's talk about the consequences of taking too much rest between sets. I've heard coaches and athletes say that they don't want to take too long between sets for the fear of getting cold and underperforming or risking injury in subsequent sets. I'm going to be completely honest with you. From what I've seen, there is currently not a whole lot of evidence to support this. And also, I've personally never seen this happen with any of my athletes. Some of my stronger athletes will take up to 15 minutes of rest between heavy sets, because that's how long they need to feel fully recovered. Especially if they are having to load or unload bars between sets, and even more so if they're using equipment like knee wraps. In fact, I've actually seen and experienced myself significant strength increases within a session, simply from increasing the amount of rest that myself or my athletes are taking. And even more importantly, what we see at some of the highest level strength competitions in the world is that it's not outrageous for there to be a 20 or even 30-minute time lapse between lifting attempts. And it wouldn't appear that this is negatively affecting their performance, especially comparing this to competitions that are too rushed, when lifters complained that they weren't recovered enough between attempts because the rest time was too short. This also raises the point that it is important for strength athletes to practice a variety of rest periods, and especially practice taking long rest to properly prepare themselves for competition. With all of this said, there is one significant downside of taking longer rests, and that is that it can be very time consuming. A 10-minute rest period will mean that your session will go well over 2 hours, and not everyone has time to train that long, or the mental energy to stay switched on for such a long session. Now let's put this all together. What is the ideal rest period for you or for your athlete? Well, it depends. It seems like the main trade-off when it comes to rest period is the time demand versus the ability to recover. Generally, for strength athletes, I do recommend a longer rest period, while hypertrophy athletes can typically get away with slightly shorter rests. But remember, 3 to 5 minutes has been shown to be more effective than 1 minute of rest. As well as considering the main goal, it's important to take into account the lifter's fitness as well as the work that they are performing in that session. An unfit athlete or someone who is lifting much heavier loads will require longer time to recover between sets in order to perform optimally, while well-conditioned athletes or athletes who are lifting lighter weights often require less rest. The majority of athletes that I work with are training for strength, and a standard rest period that I'll prescribe my female lifters or less experienced males will be around 5 minutes, while my stronger males may take 10 minutes, or if they're doing a session of squatting or deadlifting 400 kilograms and plus, these guys are taking up to 15 minutes rest between sets. So this concludes our discussion on programming. This has been a huge module and we really have covered a lot. My hope is now that you have a better understanding of programming, so you can make intelligent decisions for yourself and your clients, but you also understand the rationale behind the programming decisions you see other coaches make.